Good morning. I want to spend a few moments talking with you this morning about helping people get off drugs and alcohol, particularly meth, heroin, cocaine, and alcohol. One of the things that you'll notice if you ever try to help somebody get off drugs and alcohol, you're going to notice that oftentimes they are in a delusion. And this delusion is driven by fears, some experiences, and oftentimes lies that they have bought into. And if you're trying to counsel them or help them in any way, one of the worst things you can do is to buy into their delusion. They will be hyper paranoid about people either trying to hurt them, people trying to steal from them, or generally people trying to plot against them. And if you buy into it, and if you try to sympathize in a way that feeds into it, you have basically ensured that they're going to continue very bad behavior. As a former drunk, I can tell you that one of the tactics I used in my drinking, if a person tried to help me, was that I would take you down the road of my pain. And if I could get you to feel my pain, then I could excuse my bad behavior. I would take you back to traumatic events in my past. And I was banking on you empathizing with me and sympathizing with me, and then you understanding why I drank and why I acted the way I did. But what I needed somebody to do was to rattle me and shake me a little bit with the facts of the case. In today's cultural climate, we probably need somebody to shake us a little bit with the facts of the case. We seem to be operating on a hyper paranoia mind state, a frenzied pitch of foolishness. And so I've developed a few illustrations that have helped along the way with helping with drug addicts, and I think would help today too. I call it swatting at bees. Have you ever seen a person, when they're in the presence of a bee, they begin to act wild. They begin to shake their hands, they begin to run, they begin to scream, and they really go overboard with trying to get away from the bee. Now, there's a few ways to deal with this. One way is they don't do that, but they're going to continue to act that way around a bee. So you give them some facts. You say things like this. How many times have you been stung by a bee? The response typically is a couple times in their life. And you say, well, how many bees have you seen in your life? And they say, well, I've seen thousands, tens of thousands. Well, how many bees have been around you that you didn't know? And they say, probably hundreds of thousands. And so you give them a percentage of the likelihood of them ever being stung. Once they see the percentage, sometimes that kind of breaks that cycle and gets them to see how foolish it is to swat and to sweat and to run and to holler when in the presence of a bee, when they could either A, just walk away from the bee, or they could ignore the bee. There's a lot of other options other than acting that way. And so you get that illustration and it helps to rattle the delusion. And that delusion is even rooted in some truth. The truth is they were stung, but the reality of it is that's not something that's likely to happen to them. The other illustration I give this to men many times who have image problems, who are wearing a mask. Every morning when they wake up, they put on a full body armor, ready for a war that never comes. The problem with that is that armor that you're putting on and that you're putting on for this war that never comes is destroying you and breaking down your body and ruining your mind and your mentality. And so you have to convince them that the war is not coming. They're not going to fight anybody. They don't have to pretend to be whoever they're pretending to be. So how do you convince somebody of that? You give them the numbers. You say, since you've been 18 and a grown man, how many physical altercations have you been in? And typically it's a very, very low number. And most men, it's the percentage will probably be less than one fight with most men. Now, some of us, it's different because of the lifestyle we chose, but typically speaking, it's pretty low. And you say, so you're not going to be attacked by anybody today. They say, well, no, not. It doesn't seem likely. If I've been in one fight and I'm 43 since I've been 18, yeah, it's very unlikely that you're going to be attacked by anybody. So why are you wearing this armor? Put it down and be free. And so this morning, I just want to use the bee illustration and the armor illustration that maybe help you with people who've bought into a lie. The reality of it is that I have personally have never felt as though the police were going to kill me. I don't know any black man who has felt that way. I know we get on social media and we say those things, and maybe you've bought into that, but it's very unlikely. There's 21 million black men in America. Just do the numbers. Don't swat at bees. Don't wear armor that you don't have to use. They call that slick checking where I'm from. Don't do that. Just some things to think about later on, y'all.